All right, guys. Well, welcome back to the Raised Hunting Podcast. And as I've told you in previous notes, thank you, because you guys are sending in your comments and your ideas for podcasts. You guys are doing what we asked, and you're reviewing the podcast. You're sharing it with your friends. So can't thank you enough. What we cannot thank today, though, is thank for one of you guys for bringing up the topic, because we actually found a topic. Didn't just find a topic, we found a person. So today, joining me is
3 big topics to talk about.
Oh, boy.
So today, joining me, besides Warren and Easton, is Tyler. Tyler, welcome to the Raised Hunting Podcast. And for those that can't see what we have sitting on the table here, pretty unique. I don't know. I'm sure someone else has done it, but it isn't done very often. And that is, what we're looking at here is 3 Boone and Crockett deer gross score.
Yes, sir.
3 Boone and Crockett deer that you killed all in one season.
Yes, sir. All with the bow, too.
All with the bow. That's impressive anywhere, anyhow. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, are they all 3 from Iowa as well?
Yes, all 3 from the same county as well.
Holy
Jeez, you keep that on the down low.
Okay.
Yeah.
We won't ask you what that is.
We won't bring up that county.
I'll bet the neighbors are like, I hate this guy.
Yeah, I get quite a bit of hate mail, I think, from my neighbors. They're not too happy with me sometimes.
Well, you're not going to get any hate mail from us. You're going to get a lot of praise, and because we know what it takes, the work that it is involved, and and so just getting to sit down with you and talk about, possibly some strategies, some theories,
Sure.
and things like that. I know we have some theories on. What did you just do to my seat?
Yours, I had to see if that was what controlled it, and so I just wanted to be nice to our guest.
Okay.
So I just dropped
So
that
you just
a little
reached
bit.
over and
So if you
dropped my seat.
stand there
right
for a
foot.
second.
Oh,
There,
man,
come
mine's
up,
all the
'cause-
way down.
Yeah,
Wow.
there you go, because you're
we
hiding
go.
behind all these deer. Is that as high as it goes?
There we go. Oh, boy, now we're
Now
talking.
you're talking.
Holy cow.
No,
Feel
Dad, you
taller.
can come back down there.
We're good.
Mine doesn't move.
I felt like I was a kindergartner after he did that. I was sitting at the table. I couldn't hardly see the table. All right, so I don't know. It doesn't matter really where we start or which one we start on. I guess let's just start as an overall. Do you know what the scores of each one are?
Yes, sir.
Roughly?
Yep. My good buddy Cameron Coble scored him for us, so he's the official scorer.
Right.
So he has the exact numbers, but yeah,
So
absolutely.
this one you said is the smallest,
Yes, sir. Yeah,
even though there's more antler there than some of the others, I think.
he was one of my favorite ones, I think, just the way his beams swoop up in the mass. He went right around 170 with being busted.
Gotcha.
He's not a character in that thing.
Yeah, for the people that
yeah,
can't
yeah.
see, he's got a broken G2, probably missing, 4 or 5 inches?
Yeah, I would say at least 4. The one brow is a little busted as well.
Man, he
Right.
broke that early, huh?
Do you know?
Yeah, it's a crazy story on this deer. I knew this buck for at least 3 years. I had pictures of him most of the time through the summer, and he would leave for the rut and then show back up in the wintertime. So he would summer and winter on this one farm. And he was also an urban deer. So he would the deer in urban zones tend to come and go quite a bit. They don't normally stay in a home range. At
Right.
least that's what I've noticed on quite a few spots. So he kind of had the same characteristics since a 2-year-old, just the big long beams that swooped. I really thought that he would blow up from 4 to 5. So I believe he was a 4-year-old deer, roughly. And he didn't put on a whole lot of inches. I mean, he put on maybe 10 from 4 to 5. And I did not have a picture of this deer. My last picture was March of, I guess it would have been 22, excuse me. And he showed back up November 6th, I believe, was my first picture. So this deer was totally gone. So after 2 years of having pictures all through the summer, he totally disappeared for one summer. I thought he was dead.
Right.
And suddenly on a cell camera, he showed up November 6th in the rut. So the deer totally flip-flopped from what he had did for years. And I was able to go in November 7th, the morning. And to tell you the truth, I really did just get lucky to go in and catch him when he decided to show back up.
So he was 5 here?
He was 5 there, yes, sir. I believe
Nick,
so.
can you turn Tyler's down just a little bit?
And you're telling me it's an urban deer?
Yes, he was in an urban zone. Yes,
We
sir.
got to get going, man. So I did my first track
man.
this year, and it was urban. It was the
Okay.
weirdest thing that I was like going through neighborhoods tracking this guy's
Are
deer.
you serious?
Yeah, and I was like, this is a thing. This is really a
Oh,
thing.
it's crazy.
It's like a little community of guys that do it.
Yeah.
They kill big deer consistently.
You can definitely get on big deer. It's getting harder than what it used to be.
I think it's getting more popular.
It's getting getting a lot more guys. It's kind of the cool thing to do now.
Yeah.
I mean, it was the public land movement. Now it's the urban hunting that's getting really popular.
Why do you think that? From what you just stated, that you don't see them have like as much of a home range as it seems like other deer. Why do you think that is?
I'm really not sure, to tell you the truth. Things have kind of changed. When I first started urban hunting, there was a few bucks that were like homebodies that really wouldn't leave. And now that more guys are doing it, it seems like those are the bucks that got killed. And now it's mostly the bucks that come in for the rut, because there's generally a pretty high population of does in the city.
Right.
And so the bucks will kind of come into the city for the rut and then leave.
So, like, what are you hunting? Like, is it like parks or like yards or?
There's a few public like parks that you can hunt. I'm kind of fortunate through our family business to have a lot of clients that'll let me hunt, and it's hard to get the edge. And if you didn't know a lot of people in the city, it kind of be hard to get permission. Right. So I'm fortunate to know a few people through our family business to get in.
So is it like little parcels, like 3 acres?
Yeah, this deer, I will tell you, this buck was he was on the edge and more of a farmland area, but most of the hunting we do in the city is like on 1 or 2 acres. Like, you're setting in people's backyards.
I was just saying, you could literally hunt somebody's backyard, right?
Oh,
if they gave you permission.
This season I shot 3 does, and I was in the guy's yard, literally. I mean, and a lot of times those are the best spots. The deer that get hunted a lot there, I feel like they learn to try to stay out of the big woods where a lot of people hunt, and they feel more comfortable in people's backyards than they do in the woods.
All right, so I got to ask this question just because I grew up in the city in Washington, D.C., but it was urban hunting wasn't a thing then. I mean, that's what you were doing.
Sure.
So it wasn't like, but anyhow, long story short, I don't feel like I was as good a hunter as what I am now, and I'm still not really good at it. I think, tell me if I'm wrong, if you're hunting urban deer and you're hunting in this 1 acre, 2 acre kind of thing and right around people, can you get away with more from scent control?
That's a very interesting question. And what I've noticed in my experience, if you're in people's yards, with literally where they're mowing their yard,
right,
that they won't pick you up as much. But the second you get in their area, in their bedroom, a couple 100 yards off the road, they know somebody's not supposed to be in there. It's
like used to them being there.
Yes, exactly. Huh. Exactly.
But you should be able to get away with more sound, like
honestly,
getting into your stand and stuff like that.
That's a controversial thing, because I've heard quite a few guys say that urban deer are really smart. And the does, at least in the area where I'm hunting, the does are incredibly smart, because you have to earn a buck tag. So the does get hunted way more than the bucks do. So the does are incredibly smart. They're hard to kill, but the bucks in the rut, they will, man. They'll just roam down the streets. So to answer your question, it can be, but when you're in people's yards, I feel like they don't pick you up near as much. But the second you get back in their area, in the woods, they know something's not right.
Somebody's going to be coming up with a cut grass cover scent. Start spraying yourself with.
Well, that's just crazy to me to think that. So how many does do you have to kill?
Each urban zone is different. Where I'm hunting, you have to get 3 for a buck tag the following year.
So is that you put into a drawing, or you're guaranteed one?
You're guaranteed one where I'm at. I know a lot of other zones around Iowa, then you're put into a drawing once you harvest those does. So it takes years to really find spots, kill your does, and get a buck tag, and then eventually fill your buck tag. It takes years, and it's a commitment. It's not as easy as what people would imagine. You go and set in somebody's yard.
Can you kill all 3 though in in one season of the does?
Yes, they have to. Yeah, all 3, and you have it's longer season. You can hunt nonstop from September 15th, whenever youth season opens in Iowa, till January 10th. So you can hunt through the shotgun seasons as well with a bow in the city.
The one that was in that I went and did that track for, they used to do it whereas whoever killed the most does the previous year was guaranteed a tag, and then now they've switched it to I think you have to kill 5 and you're guaranteed a
Wow.
tag. or something.
Each city's different around Iowa. I think that kind of makes Iowa unique when it comes to urban hunting.
I think it's the greatest tool that you could possibly employ to.
Yeah.
Number one, hunters are already paying to do something that the states need to be done.
Well, exactly.
You know, which is great, which makes us the greatest conservation tool this planet has ever seen. On top of that, now you're employing a way to make sure that the guys that are going to get to kill the bigger deer are the ones that are putting in the most effort.
Well, exactly.
What do you see a higher survival rate in the deer in the city or less? Because they have so many other different factors they got to deal with.
I would say the younger deer, yeah, because nobody, I mean, the people that are doing the work to get that buck tag aren't going to shoot a 2 or 3 year old buck. The top deer, they're pretty highly sought after. I mean, once the rumors start going around, there's a big buck in the neighborhood. There's probably 5 or 6 guys trying to kill that one buck.
And that was literal, in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
You notice he said.
Oh yeah, literally in the neighborhood down the
Right.
street.
Well, I'd imagine too. It's got to be impossible to keep that quiet. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just people are going to see them going to work or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, hey, using Facebook is actually a great way how to scout to find a buck in the city. I mean, somebody will post on a forum that they saw a big deer, just like a main street forum, that they saw a deer walking across the street. And well, there you go. Now time to go knock on doors and put cell cameras out and try to figure them out.
Little did they know they just got that deer killed.
That's right, exactly.
Tyler's watching KCCI. Did a lot of people know about this deer?
I know there was probably at least 1 or 2 other guys hunting them. My good buddy Chris was hunting them, and he was a little upset that I killed him, but there's several other he can go after. So.
Well, he only blew in for 1 day, though,
Yeah,
right? I mean,
and I have no idea where this deer went because my buddy Chris was hunting maybe a mile or so away, and he had never had a picture of him that year. So I this year he just decided to do something totally different than which that usually goes against what a lot of deer will do. I mean, deer will do the same thing year to year pretty often, and he did something off the wall. I don't know why.
maybe he couldn't get across the street.
That could be
Too much traffic or something.
Yeah.
You know.
I love this deer though. Like that mass out there is just like out of all of them, I'd probably would shoot this one.
On his head, his G2s almost literally go like backwards. It was one of the most unique looking bucks.
Well, his right side looks very similar to my deer's right side this year.
Yeah, I was noticing that looking at your deer. It's like the same kind of similar mass.
Yep. So which one was first?
That one up front was first, actually.
And so that was the second biggest.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And you don't know, he was 175, is that what you said?
Right at 175, I believe. Yep.
And then, so that one farm?
That was the landowner's tag on that one. Yes, sir.
How many acres do you have?
27.
Nice.
I have 27, and my dad has 23, I believe. So
did you know that one for a while too?
Yes, and that deer is one, looking back, I wish I would have let him go. I'm pretty 100% sure that deer was only 4 years old. And I was actually hunting a totally different buck on the farm. And the buck that I was hunting was on the plot the night before. And so he was there October 14th, and I went after him October 15th. And it was getting dark, and I just saw a giant buck coming to the plot, and I had like a split second to decide whether I'm going to kill the deer. And I was like, I'm going to shoot it. It has to be the buck that was there last night. And shot the deer, called my dad, called all the buddies, and we went over and walked up on him. I was like, uh-oh, that's not the deer we thought it was. And I did not have a picture of that deer either for, I believe my last picture was like July. And he suddenly showed up. I don't know if you guys remember, mid-October was incredible this year here in Iowa. Yep. That cold front hit just perfect. A lot of big deer died around the 15th of October. And so that cold front must have got him up on his feet and decided he was going to go check out where he was going to spin the rut. And
I can't.
That one.
That would never. I would never be saying "uh-oh" when I walked in.
I just wanted to kind of point out to someone that he's made a mistake on a deer that G4s are probably 8 inches long, or at least this one side. I mean.
So do you have good neighbors there that you're able to kind of pass them like that?
Yeah, I'm
make it a little
pretty
easier.
fortunate to have a really good neighborhood. All the neighbors are on the same page. I know there was a couple guys that we were hoping to let that deer go through. So a little disappointed, but
I would not be disappointed. That's a freaking incredible deer. Yeah, October 14th, I actually almost killed my deer.
Really?
Yeah.
When did you end up killing him?
October 29th.
Wow, gotcha.
Yep. And Eli and I killed him first 2 minutes of shooting light on October 29th.
So
we had him at like 40 on October 14th in the evening in the last like 3 minutes of light, but I couldn't shoot into the field. We set up just a little bit too far in the timber. So, yeah, that's an incredible deer. And so you put a food plot on your place and everything too?
Yeah, that was kind of a little just clover plot in the middle of the woods, not far from our house at all, maybe 150 yards from our front porch.
That's an odd place to have a kicker.
Yeah, it is really weird, isn't it?
On the inside like that, just a little extra point.
And a curve like that, too.
Yeah.
That deer was one that the picture that I had of him in July is like, yeah, he looked like he was a good deer, maybe 160. And then when we walked up on him, it was like, holy cow,
That's
thing
some ground growth.
Yeah, it was way bigger than, and he blew up from what, if he was 4 this year, he was probably 130 the year before as just I think he was just a 8-pointer, but he had the split on the G2 and a couple stickers off his bases, so he put on some
lot.
That deer was 130.
I believe so, maybe 140 with the stickers.
Holy
he put on
cow.
some serious inches.
Yeah, that
sounds like Nomad.
Yeah.
We had a deer that got killed. We don't have as good. We have some good neighbors, and we have some that aren't as
Sure.
helpful. And one of the neighbors killed a deer that I called Nomad, which I kind of figured this deer's probably not going to make it. And he went from what we were guessing 130,
120 is really probably.
yeah, maybe even 129, around that 130 mark, to what we figured was close to 170. I think the guy when he killed him was he like 165 or something like that.
I don't know if they scored him or not.
I mean, but he grew 30, 35 inches.
Are you serious?
He's
How
only
old do
3
you
or
think?
4, though, wasn't he?
I think that was from
2 to 3.
2 to 3. I think this year he was only 3.
Yeah.
Wow.
He was
You see his
That's
body?
incredible.
He's
He
got
was
a
a little
really
guy.
small body.
That's incredible. That's crazy.
But he got his name as Nomad because I had seen him one day. I didn't know it until I saw him in one place, and then I saw him 2 miles away that afternoon.
Wow.
And then I had a picture of him in between on
Holy
the
cow.
same day. I mean, this
He
deer was
got around.
freaking everywhere.
Wow.
So we gave him that name. Well, sure enough, now Nomad ended up in some dude's pickup truck about a mile and a half from my house. So
Well,
He would do it in the summer too.
Yeah.
So, like
in the summer, really?
Deer was
Never
just
stopped.
Bounce around.
all
Just
over
from,
the
what,
place.
from one bean field to another? Or
it
anything.
didn't make sense. It just kind of would see him.
man,
know, I mean,
he
just-
like to get out and get around.
But that's something that, and let's get through this next year. And then I want to talk to you a little more about, because we've already kind of touched on some of the things that we agree on, that,
Sure.
deer shouldn't be traveling at this time of year. This deer will do the same thing year after year. Some things like that I think that people will appreciate hearing from. All
Gotta
right,
be
so
careful. We'll lose an eighth of an
the
inch.
one in the middle is the widest one, and I think you said this is the one that scores the best.
The wide buck, yeah, he was the biggest. That deer has a pretty crazy story. I don't have a lot of years of history with him. He at least a new farm, and he was just happened to be one of the bucks that was living on that farm. And I had almost daily pictures of this buck all summer. I mean, literally in the middle of the day at like noon, he would be out walking across the bean field. So he just was like a huge homebody. My wife shot a buck October 6th, and we were looking for him. We never did find him, but she found a pretty nice shed, and it turns out to be it was his shed from last year. So he was there all summer long, regular pictures till I think September 15th or so, and then he totally disappeared, which I mean, you kind of figured a deer was going to leave his summer range. Then I had one picture of him on November 3rd. I guess he just happened to come back one day he probably got on a hot doe and came back. And then he disappeared again. I killed him on, I believe, the day after Thanksgiving, like the 26th of November or so.
It was a good day.
It was a really good day. Yeah.
Easton killed his that day too.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, and I found out after I killed him that the neighbors was getting regular pictures. Literally, like the day, the 14th or 15th of September that he kind of disappeared is when the neighbor immediately started getting pictures of him. And I think he was getting pictures maybe 2 miles away or so, maybe not quite that far.
When did you say he left again?
September 14th
September.
or 15th, yeah,
Okay.
mid-September. And then one rogue picture in mid-November or early November, I think the 3rd or 4th. I guess he just got on a hot doe. But it was in his same summer area where where the picture was. He just liked like one side of the farm. He would hardly ever go on the other side. So I was actually hunting a different buck. He was a nice 10-pointer. He wasn't anything giant. He was a little smaller than these. And I went in after that deer, and I had him get by me at like 30 yards. I was looking at my phone, and I looked up, and he's standing right there. I was like, you got to be kidding me.
He was looking at a raised hunting TikTok.
There you go. That's right. And he got by me, and he's walking away, and I was like, crap. So I grabbed my rattle, and I was like, I got to try something. I was mad at myself more than anything. I grab him, and I bang him together. He doesn't even look. He just keeps walking up the hill. And he gets up the hill, and I look on the horizon, and that buck is standing there on the horizon out in the cow pasture.
Oh, that's got to be scary.
And and I don't know. I'll get to this in a little bit, but the deer was really sick. Like his body was down to nothing. So it just all you see was this giant wide rack standing on the horizon. And well, the buck that I was hunting, the one that I had to get by me, was walking right towards him. I kind of lost track of him. I don't know if they kind of tussled up there or one pushed off the other one. The other buck was the deer had to be 300 pounds easy, and lost track of both of them, and then all of a sudden I hear something come walking down the ditch. Where I shot that deer is actually literally a ditch. So this farm has kind of a main area of woods, and then there's just a little ditch in the middle of the crop fields that goes down to a pond. And for some reason that other buck was there a lot in the rut. So I heard him coming down the ditch, and I couldn't see anything until they were like right under me, just the way the brush was. And I thought it was the other buck, and he came down, and that thing pops out of the brush, and I was like, "Holy crap!" I mean, I was losing my mind because I hadn't seen him since that one trail camera picture, and I'd never seen the deer in person. And I shot him at like 9 yards. I mean, just like right under me, and it was the weirdest thing ever. It kind of the arrow went down through his back, and the deer just like stood there, almost like a gut shot deer, like hunched up. And he's just standing there, and I was like, well, I guess I'm going to shoot him again. So I knocked another arrow, and I hit him again. It was a decent shot, kind of the same thing. Went down kind of through his back and came out between his front legs.
He's at 9 yards still?
At 9 yards, literally standing on. That's one of the times, like, man, I wish I was filming this hunt. And he's just standing there like nothing ever happened.
After two arrows?
2 arrows, 2 arrows through his chest cavity, he's just standing there like nothing happened. And the deer walks off maybe 50 yards. And I was going to try to shoot him again because he's not dying. An hour went by, and he's standing there at like 50 yards like nothing ever happened. So I call my dad, and I call some friends, like, what should I do? I know I put 2 decent shots. The deer was right under me, and he's just standing there like nothing happened. And so I decided to back out, and we came back the next morning, and he was finally dead. I'm pretty sure the deer was like half zombie or something. When we found him, his mouth, like his bottom jaw, was almost like dislocated, and I think that he must have gotten a fight, and he took an arrow through his mouth some kind, and it was all full of pus. It was really disgusting. And I don't think he could eat. I don't know how long that went on, but deer lose a lot of body weight for the rut, but this deer was down to nothing.
Right.
So how far did he go from the last place you saw him?
No, he didn't go any farther.
Right,
he finally
How
dropped
steep
right
was
there.
the angle?
From where I shot him?
Yeah, when he was right underneath you.
Like right under me, like straight down almost.
You think it could have maybe one lung?
It's possible. Yeah. The first shot was a little bit back, and so I could see that one being one lung and liver. But the second shot, when I field dressed him, his lungs were pretty shredded.
I was gonna say, did you look at his lungs to see if they were if they had compressed or something?
Yeah. Well, we wanted to dissect this deer and see what was wrong with him. My first thought that popped in my head was I don't know, CWD or some kind of disease. Heard a lot of rumors. So I was just curious for myself. But his body was just down to nothing. And when I took him to the taxidermist, Rick actually told me that when he cut off the skull plate, that the deer's brain was like half green.
Ooh.
So I don't know if it was from the infection that he had in his mouth from getting hit with an antler, I'm guessing. But he was gonna die probably pretty fast.
Sounds like you did him a favor.
Yeah.
He probably wouldn't have made it through the winter. Doesn't sound like for sure.
I don't think so.
It's a good deer to give a favor to, too.
Yeah.
So that was November 20th.
That was I think the day after Thanksgiving, so what, the 26th or so.
Had he kind of moved back and like was around kind of frequent again?
I never had it. So I had he disappeared mid-September. I had the one rogue trail camera picture on November 3rd, and then I didn't have no pictures or sightings till the day I killed him. So I don't know if he was just like he was living on the edge where I was hunting him. Maybe he was coming back after the rut to winter on this farm. I mean, since my wife found his shed from the year before, I was kind of suspecting he was going to come back for the winter.
Yeah, see, we had a deer that's the reason I asked that is we had one that showed up while he was on the one farm till I think October 13th or 14th, that broke rack buck, and then went 5 miles. And
wow.
5 miles, stayed on this other farm the entire time until like November 27th or 28th, and then he came back and he was traveled 5 miles, and then yeah, it was just really fortunate, that we could hunt both places where he was traveling to and from, but he would leave, the one area for the rut, it seemed like, and then he would come all the way back for wintering.
Do you think deer in open areas travel more versus, say, like big woods? Like I know down in my area we have bigger chunks of woods versus you do up in this neck of the woods. So, I mean, what do you think? Do you think they go farther?
I would personally, I think that where this deer was, there's lots of timber. I think that some of them just have different zones. That's the furthest one that we've ever seen go.
Wow.
That's 5 miles.
I mean, 5 miles is pretty good ways.
Yeah, but at the same time, we have other deer that do that to us, where they disappear, and we just don't know where they go.
Right. Pretty fortunate to have both the spots where he would go.
Yeah,
lucky, very lucky.
The deer I killed last year, we happened same thing. It was only 2 miles, mile and 3/4, something like that. But I ended up killing that deer off of knowing summertime, I'd have him over here. October 1, right around the end of September, he would leave. I would know that everything is starting to gear up because he'd disappear and he'd start showing up on this. And like you were talking about, only show up on one part of a farm. Yeah. I only have 50 acres, and we border a neighbor that we can hunt as well. He never crossed. I mean, he stayed on like a 400-yard area.
Yeah,
and just stayed down there.
And it's kind of funny. When we say that, it doesn't have to be a big farm for a deer to favor one side or the other. This deer right here, I would only have pictures of him on one side of the farm. In 3 years of getting pictures, I never had a single picture on the other side of the farm. So he must have just been right on I must have been hunting him on the edge of his territory,
of his zone.
Yeah, we were just talking about that the other day. I feel like there's some of these deer where you could call it core areas, I guess, but in my opinion, when they're core area, the timber or whatever bumps right up to beans or corn. You'd think they would go another 100 yards every once in a while and venture out in that field. But we have deer, like you're talking about, some that we have 3, 4, 5 years of history with, and they won't do it.
And they won't. I don't understand it because it's not far. It's just I guess they have their areas they like and the areas they don't.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. So, have you ever done this before? 370. Did you have a late season tag?
Yes, I did, and
you could have killed 4.
Come on,
slacking.
It's actually this season was it was fortunate to get on these deer, but I actually missed a deer that probably had 20 inches on all of these bucks. Really? And that deer has haunted me all summer long, all fall. It's like I was fortunate to have a really good season, but that was the deer that I wanted, and I didn't get it, and so it's like it still haunts me.
How far was the shot?
Oh man, the shot, the time that I actually missed that deer was like 34 yards
34.
or so. Yeah, but that's a long story on that buck. I got to show you a picture of him.
Did anybody else kill him?
No. Well, I think he could have been poached actually. I had regular pictures of him, and then he suddenly just disappeared October 31st. And I was hunting him Halloween, and I heard a gunshot on the other side of the farm, kind of where I thought he was living, and I never saw him again since then. So I don't know what's happened. I mean, he could be 5 miles away, like you said, somewhere. Or he could be in somebody's garage right now, unfortunately. But he was a typical deer, too. Let's see.
That's crazy.
So obviously, though, too, for people that don't know Tyler, you're no stranger to big deer. He's killed what was that one? 230?
234.
234.
Yes,
how big was the one that you found?
He went right at 200 as a gross. I guess it would have been gross non-typical, but as a 6x5.
But he pretty much typical.
Yeah, pretty much a typical deer. Yeah.
And so how many 170 plus inch deer have you killed now?
Gotta think about it.
That right there tells it all. You don't have to say anything.
Goodness gracious.
I think 8 with
8?
the gun and a bow. Yeah.
What was the one that you killed with those sweet flyers?
The flyers.
Where'd that deer go?
That he went, I think 194 gross.
God dang.
He was that.
The deer's got he's significantly heavier than all these deer.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That like hammer mass.
Right.
So you've killed 8 over 170.
I believe
roughly.
So. Yeah.
Well, how many have you got? Any in the 80s?
No, he skips that. He goes straight to the 90s and 200s.
No, I don't actually. No, because he went shy of 80. No, it's either 170 or 200. I guess I don't know.
Easton was like, I need to shoot a 110 this year because he wants to have
every
like
other 10,
a 10-inch bracket.
Every 10-inch increment except for 110.
There you go.
But you see what he did, Easton?
Yeah, he busted it off so he could get what he wanted.
No. So Easton had a major malfunction this year, in my opinion, where he wouldn't shoot his deer if he was quit hunting him because he broke a tine.
A significant amount.
You can put it back. I mean,
if you really wanted to, it's not like he didn't see, he even saw the deer when he still had it. We had video footage, had photos of him.
I mean, if he broke off half of his side, I could see that.
Right.
But I mean, one time you can put it back on.
Is he 12? Sure.
Yeah, he's a 6x6.
I want to know
what.
So if these are the amount of the size of deer you're killing, what kind of steroid do you have for them, and how do you give it to them?
That's a good question. I think they get it from we do snow removal, and so I take the salt that we get and put on people's parking lots. And no, actually, I would say that, and it's not a secret at all. The hardest part is just finding a deer. I think a lot of people get locked up on hunting 1 or 2 farms, and that's where they're going to hunt. And I mean, if there's not a big deer there, then
you're not going to find.
You're not going to get them.
Well, so that's I want to go to this question real quick. So, how old are you again?
21. Yes, sir.
You're 21?
Yes, sir.
What the heck? You look like his age.
Okay, so you're 21, and you've killed 8 deer that are 170 plus, and a 230. Clearly
that
huge
too.
3 in 1 year. This is why I wanted to have Tyler on here, because obviously you're a humble dude, but I don't know that I know anybody else that's killed 370 plus inch deer with a bow in 1 year.
You're gonna have to meet my dad.
He done it a bunch?
He's killed some really big deer, but he's
has he done 3 in 1 year? No, we're not knocking on Dad.
Yeah, last year he killed 3 big deer. I don't think they were all booners. They were one or two was booners.
Okay, so yeah, we'll have to have.
What kind of land are you having for us, Dad?
Yeah, I just wanted to apologize now for what I've done as a father, because I obviously, sorry.
Only moved us halfway across the country to the deer capital of the world.
So that's my question. So, in my opinion, regardless of your age, that you're one of the most accomplished whitetail hunters, in my opinion, that I've met.
About that.
No, dude, I'm telling you, there's not many people killing deer like what you're doing.
Consistently.
And,
that's the key to it.
So my question to you is, obviously you're doing something different than what most hunters are doing. So my first question would be what are you doing to find these deer? Like how, and it sounded like you were just about to go into it. And then my second question for you, and maybe you want me to part them up, but my second question for you is going to be what is one thing that you feel as though that most guys are doing that you go against, something else that helps you
different.
Succeed.
I would say one of the biggest things is kind of like we were talking about is just finding a deer that's big enough. And a lot of people will get locked up on, they have 1 or 2 places that they have permission or lease or own, and that's the only spot they're going to hunt. And if the deer's not there, you're not going to, I mean, you can't want to expect to kill a giant deer every year if the farm doesn't have a giant deer every year. So the hardest part is you have to go out there and find them. And I mean, that can be hard, but in my experience personally, one of the biggest thing I would say is actually our family business. just getting to know a lot of people doing landscaping and snow removal. I mean, you get to know a ton of people, and a lot of people don't like the deer, especially in urban areas, and are more than happy to let you hunt. So you have to get out there and meet a lot of people and not be afraid to knock on doors or even public land.
Wait, you're telling me that you can still get permission in 2023?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
We did a whole podcast
one
on that because, I mean, we get people that write in and say you can't where we live, and I'm not saying that it's not more difficult than what it was when I was your age.
Sure.
And I'm not saying that it's not more difficult in another state somewhere. You know, but I'll bet money, if you knock on enough doors, eventually someone's going to say yes.
Oh yeah.
You just got to be, and so that to me, what I'm hearing is someone who's putting in the work. At 21 years old, my hat's off to you because, I mean, killing does to make sure that you have a urban tag in your pocket to be able to shoot one. Passing on other deer, checking trail cameras, putting in food plots, it's all work.
Yeah.
And you got to want to do that, and you got to really believe in it, you know, that it's going to have some kind of an effect. And the effect is the results are sitting on this table.
Well, and when it comes to getting permission, I mean, you have to be willing to help people out as well. There's one spot, and the guy owns 12 acres. That's all. And I mowed the guy's yard for him for free all summer long. He's got about a 3 or 4 acre yard. It's a pretty sizable place to do, just for hunting rights. I mean, so it probably is harder to get permission today versus 20, 30 years ago. But be willing to help people out, and they'll help you out as well.
Building a relationship.
Yes,
yeah.
Yes.
That's what I said. That is that the times are different. I think back then you could go knock on somebody's door and it was normal to let them go hunting.
Yeah.
Where now I think that just there's so much weird stuff that happens nowadays that people you have to take the time and find a way to build a bit of a relationship with them before they're just going to say, yeah, go ahead and go hunt my property, especially if they only have 12 acres. Right. You're going to be parking in their yard.
Right.
So I guess my question on you how you're finding these deer, is it simply like you just go out and try and get as much permission as you can? Are you driving around and trying to see them first? Is it walk me through
having a lot of spots to hunt? I would say between my father and I, we probably have at least 20 different farms in 5 different counties that we hunt. And there's a lot of these farms where neither my dad or I have hunted these farms for years because there hasn't been a deer worth hunting there. So we'll try to get permission on as many places, whether it's just knocking on doors, through our business, through lease, and having cameras on all of these farms to see if there's a deer just even worth hunting. Because don't go, if you're going to go out and want to kill a 170-inch deer and the biggest buck on the farm is 130, then you're just wasting your time. So running cameras on all of these farms, and that's what my dad does, and he's a master of it, is just running trail cameras on so many farms. And yeah. Yeah.
Here we go.
Hey, I just want to know, you're putting in work outside of the season, correct?
Oh, it's
like a lot,
365 every single day, man. I mean, dude, the season just ended, and
you really want to talk crap,
Dad?
This
is great.
Well,
we had another podcast.
Let me check real quick. 62 sits and 10.
I want to hear it. Hey, 3-1-70s.
My whole theory, I agree with you as far as putting in the work in the off season. What the thing that we argue about is that I don't really care that much about having a deer in June, July, or August because I don't know he's going to be there. So to me, it's way more important to know that I have him there in September or October to be able to kill him. So I don't take a ton of time and spend a whole bunch of time. And I really like to –
Dan.
Whoa. I really like to try to kill deer on what they're doing. So, these guys love the art of, trying to get whitetail to do what they want, whitetail. And I like to try and figure him out, that he's hitting this scrape, he's bedding here, he's doing whatever it is that he's doing, and then I try to kill him when he makes the mistake of it's not even a mistake, really. It's all I'm trying to do is if I can understand what he's doing, and then I can capitalize on him just doing what he's comfortable with, I kill him. So, to me, that just gives me the best odds. And that's what I like to chase.
Well, looking at this now, I think you have to do both. You have to do both because you're going to have deer on farms like you're saying that we do food plots that are going to be killable. But you're also going to have a lot of bucks that aren't going to show up until the rut or mid-October. And who cares where they were all summer? They're here now. So I think you have to do both. You have to be adaptable.
Well, I definitely learned. Like I was on the side of I was checking cameras every weekend, putting food out during the summers to just see if I can see what deer is there and stuff, and excessive amounts of how much I was out there. And this year I learned the hard way. Like I 100% believe that the reason I didn't have as nearly as good of a season as I normally do is because I was there so much. The deer weren't doing what they naturally do.
Yeah.
And this is the most I've ever worked in doing them. So spreading your farms, I could see, like, when I have, if you have 20 farms, you got tons of places to go. Yeah, you're gonna have tons of work to do, but you're not all in one specific spot doing all the work.
How many acres do you think you guys are hunting? Is it because like when you say a farm?
Not as much as you would think. A lot of those parcels are like 50 acres or less. The majority of them, well, that flyer buck we were talking about, I shot that deer, and a guy owns an acre and 4/10.
Sounds like what you like too.
We used to hunt a spot that was 10 acres, but it was the right 10 acres.
Yeah.
I mean, and you can, and I even had a spot in Montana. Actually, I didn't have permission. I had a buddy of mine in the middle of a 23,000 acre farm.
Wow.
He had 8 acres.
Wow.
And the 8 acres, though, was right in the center of it.
Well, that was a ranch.
That's
a
all
ranch.
you need, though.
It was some Yellowstone type stuff.
Oh, boy.
Like
okay.
they had the,
I mean, he's still hunting it today. And, I mean, literally, it's a deal where you go in there and you determine, do I want to kill this buck or not? There's just, I mean, so I guess so people that are listening can understand I think all of us sitting here, including yourself, would probably say, if I could have 1,000 acre or 5,000 acre farm, love to. Then I know I could pass on a deer and he was going to make it, if he lived internally inside that.
I tell you what, man, I would rather, I think a big misconception in hunting is that you have to have 1,000 acres to kill a giant deer like we're just talking about. I would much rather have 20, 50 acre parcels than
100%.
one big tract.
That's exactly what you said. Right when we moved here, because I've disagreed with them on it before, and seeing like your side of it, I could see that. I could see the guys that want a big piece of land, but having a lot of separate different places could be extremely beneficial.
If you want to do food plots and you want to enjoy, the farm and the land, then having one big farm is awesome. But if you really want to kill a giant deer every single year, you want to be in as many different neighborhoods as you can.
Would you say that you are more so managing your deer or just flat out finding where the big deer are? Whether it be like you just
a little bit of both, but more so finding them. I mean, I don't have enough land to where I could say that I'm growing them, so to speak.
Well, it doesn't sound, a lot of those places you probably couldn't pass them comfortably, knowing that they're going to grow.
Not really. Yeah. I mean, so like the first deer up there. I mean, that was a deer being on my own land that I could have say you watch it grow and you passed them, but most of the deer were going out and finding them. I mean, like this buck, we didn't know him the year before at all. He was just living on the farm.
Yep.
Well, it sounds like that you're doing, like Easton said, very similar to what I felt, and I do it for a couple reasons. One, I'm hunting new deer. If I go 10 miles or 20 miles away, it's a whole new set of deer.
Yeah.
So one thing that can do is if we have an issue with EHD comes through and wipes out a whole area or a whole county, I don't end up with no place to hunt.
You have another farm 20 miles away that doesn't have any EHD at all.
Absolutely.
That's the one that everybody that's listening to the podcast would know is Shane. That is so intriguing to me. We have a really good buddy of ours that he manages 100%. And the man has freaking big deer, like incredibly big deer, and like he's got it so managed so well that he knows this week during the year I'm going to be hunting this specific spot because I'm going to have at least 3 of these deer here, and they've been coming in this much. Like he has them down to his system,
like a deer farm.
He's also, literally. He's also it's a little different because Shane, it could be a 160-inch deer, and he has such an attachment to those deer that he would rather go and kill that deer than go and chase 180-inch
See,
deer.
there's so many guys that get locked down on the farms,
too.
Right? They're into managing the farm. So I mean, it's like, what do you want to do? Do you want to manage the farm and shoot? Okay, the biggest buck on the farm this year is a 160. He needs to go. Let's kill him. Or do you want to go into every year and try to kill the biggest possible deer that you can find, no matter where it's at?
Well, so let me ask you this question because I think this is very, very interesting. one, that's part of the reason I wanted to have you on here, because I don't know if Dad or Easton was quite aware how many deer you'd killed. I've seen them, and I've been like, holy crap, and because I started really paying attention after you were at our Antlers in August and on our 200 panel. And so then I was showing Dad and Easton pictures, and they were all like, holy crap. Because what I think is crazy about what you're doing is you're basically, so I guess, what's the biggest farm you guys have? Like 200 acres, 300 acres?
The biggest possible farm is, I believe, 240.
Okay, do you have like a booner on there every year or one?
We've had that farm for 3 years, and I think I've hunted it 2 times, and I don't think my father has ever hunted that farm in 3 years.
What's the biggest deer that's usually on there?
This year, there was probably a deer that was 160.
160. Okay, so that's my point right there. What you're doing is attainable to anybody listening to this podcast.
Oh, yeah.
And you're saying you can go and kill bigger deer than if you were the guy that bought that 240-acre farm.
Exactly.
That, he can only kill what's there, which I get it, too. For the guy that wants to Dad, you're probably one of those people that it's a sentimental thing to him, right? Like, I go and I'll walk all these places for antlers and stuff, and they're both of him. These guys are
I
like,
don't get it.
Like, what's so stupid? Why are you doing that? And because to me, there's a few parts to it. One, if I ever end up hunting it, but two, really, I just love deer antlers, and I love walking stuff that's new and different. But I can see where Dad gets an attachment to, that he put in all of this work and this was the result. But I think
finding an antler in the middle of my food plot is more.
It's very
and
rewarding.
It can be small, but it and I think that's the other thing is where I'm at now. It's no more about how big they are as much as it's about how old they are.
Yes.
And now I get to know them, and then it's like, okay, this deer's 6 or he's 7. He's going to go downhill. The deer Warren just killed. We knew this deer. I'm like, Warren, kill that deer. I want you to kill him because he'd already gone downhill. And so that's my question to you guys. It sounds like even at 21 years old, when are you thinking or feel like the deer are peaking? What age would you say that whitetail deer?
Man, that is an interesting question because I've seen deer that will literally peak at 4 years old sometimes.
Yep.
And then I was talking to a guy at the ATA show that was hunting a buck, and he didn't peak till he was 9. Which is insane, 9 years old, and that was his biggest rack. I would say, and just to kind of generalize it, I would say a deer would peak at 6. That's just kind of what I've seen. But each deer is different, man.
Did that guy have pictures of that deer for that long?
Yeah, he had pictures. Him and a neighbor had pictures of him for from 4 to 9, so at least 5 years.
4 to 9.
Yes.
So I would go out on a limb and I'd put down a lot of money that they were wrong on the age.
That's certainly
personally, like I don't
only because we've done it and we found out until we started we switched to how we were aging them, as far as once they're dead or finding a dead buck, killing a buck, we're sending the teeth in, the front teeth, to have them cut up so that they're done through the cementum rather than looking at a jaw.
Wow!
And once we started doing that, we started finding that our initial guess, we were almost always off by a year.
Especially on the big deer. The only reason I say that is because
if we thought he was 4, he was only 3.
Yeah.
Really? Mm-hmm. So deer can be younger than what people were thinking.
Well, and the only reason I say that is because so far every person that has presented me with a situation like that, not one of them yet can show me pictures from like 2 till 9, or there's always like a 3 or 4 year variance in there. And so like Juice was a perfect example. We just swore up and down Juice was 6.5 years old. Because he was at 3, the deer was flipping huge. Like he was 160-some inch deer, and I'll bet he still would have weighed 215.
He was serious.
Oh yeah,
just when you looked at him, you're like, okay.
But even 2, the deer was way more lean, and you could definitely tell him compared to himself at 3 was notably different. But he just was such a genetic freak that he was an outlier.
Yeah. If you don't have years and years of pictures of a buck, it's near impossible to really tell exact. I mean, you can say a deer is mature, but telling the difference between 5 and 7, unless you have years of pictures, you can't tell.
No.
I think once they get older than 4, it's hard to. If you don't have any idea who they are, I think after they get to like 4 or 5, it's like it's a guess.
I've noticed a few bucks that had bigger bodies at 4 years old than they did by the time they were 7. It was they looked like a more mature, older deer at 4 because they were just in their prime of life, you could say. Their body was huge. Their rack was pretty big. By the time they got 7 or 8, their bodies like dwindled. And so a lot of people would look at that deer and think, oh, that deer's kind of got a skinny neck. He's a 130-inch 8-pointer. Oh, that's a young deer. In reality, the deer's like 8 years old.
That one I just killed,
yeah,
he dressed 133 pounds.
Holy smokes.
But the weird thing
The only thing I will say about that is his guts. When you dressed him was the most I've ever seen in any deer ever before. I would have been curious to know what he went without being field dressed.
Even if
that's crazy. That's very crazy. I like looking at the size of a deer's heart. I think, I don't know, that's just something I noticed when you got a deer. It's like comparing some of the older deer that I know for sure were older. Their hearts are always like massive.
Well, so that was one thing.
What we were referencing is the thickness of their skull.
Okay.
You know,
yeah.
Right,
but I'm looking at these, unless they're
thin.
These would be 3-4-year-old deer. All of them are thin.
I would say this buck right here was definitely the oldest one.
So what we're looking at here for anybody that is watching and is also listening. So when we kill a deer, if we're going to mount it, we'll skull cap them. So these deer are skull capped. And Warren has been looking at it, and Dad's been looking at it. That I don't know if you're going to zoom in right there, but the skull, like the thickness of the skull, we've been curious because. Like KB, the one Warren just killed, we know is at least 7, was thick. Brahma is what is it, 6 or 7?
I think he's at least 6.
I mean, that would make sense.
Really. And then like I killed a buck. We think mine is maybe for 4, right? That's what the neighbor said, and real thin. And you can so I mean it's kind of added up some, but we're starting to pay attention to that now to see what the difference is. So anybody that's watching anything, that's what we're referring to. But like looking at these, that's why I asked you right away how old you thought they were.
Yeah.
Because there has been some validity to it, and some of these older deer we've killed with just freaking really thick skulls.
I've never actually paid much attention to
I
that,
just
but
don't know.
I mean it would make sense. A deer get older, their bones.
Well, we did an entire podcast on aging deer, and honestly, I think that because we don't agree on a lot of things, but that's the one we do agree on is that it's not a solid, okay, that deer's 4. Every person in here is going to guess that and get it right, and that deer, and it's just not going to happen.
No.
And I agree with Easton. I think once they break 4, that 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old deer, they're out, mature. That's all that you can tell is typically that's a mature deer.
Yes.
And I also agree with you that as they start to get older, they even get harder to tell. Now you are starting to look
because they can lose their weight too.
Yeah, they're a smaller looking deer, but now we start looking at the bases are real big, but the rest is not. You know, the antlers dwindle. It just seems like it would take an unimaginable amount of knowledge and study, like a deer study to really be able to put this in there. But looking at the wear on their teeth and to say every deer matches this poster, this is a 2, this is a 3, this is a 4-year-old, man, I'm telling you right now.
But even regionally too. Like regionally is even more difficult. Like a Texas deer, I wouldn't be able to freaking.
Yeah, looks way different than our
Iowa
deer.
They would all look too.
Yeah.
So it's just, but it's, and maybe that's what I love about my own farm and stuff like that is having history and knowing when that deer walks in that I'm killing, and then we also get those bucks that are just bullies.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And I hate them. And it seems like I never get one of those that's 180. He's always 130. He's 135 as an 8.
You did.
No, Juice was a bully.
And he was 179 and 7.
Yeah, he was. He was one of the few that I've ever seen. But
come on, don't complain too much now.
Yeah, typically they're not.
We
big
need to keep
bucks.
you around more often.
They're not big antlered bucks. They're usually big, burly. Just
big
love
body,
to fight.
mean deer.
I'm glad we.
Well,
go ahead.
Hold on. I want to ask a question about because what is your theory on KB and why he was broken every year? Do you think he was a big battler, or do you think it was the fact that he just had thin tines? And
I just don't think it took much to break him.
That's what I think. I don't think he was a big brawler.
Yeah, I think because you've seen his antlers now. It's just
pencil thin.
Yeah, there's nothing there. I think
we're talking about a deer that actually, when you talked about like when we were giving Easton crap about shooting one that was broken, and you said maybe if he had half it. Well, this deer one year had almost his entire main beam broke off.
Holy smokes.
And we're talking 6 points on that side.
Every year.
It wouldn't be his whole part, but he'd have a big chunk every year broken off of his main beam.
That was him at 2 or 3. We're not sure.
Jeez.
He was one of these that you try. We're like, if we're gonna kill him, we need to do it really early before he breaks anything, because it's just a matter of time.
Right.
And then that was him this year. So he was significantly smaller, but that was from 2017. We had a bunch of history.
His neck wasn't very big either. Look the picture this year.
Yeah, I think
he did not look like an old. No. Besides the fact of looking run down when me and you saw him,
huge though.
It was also, and he kind of looked deformed because he had that weird growth or whatever on him.
Yeah.
Other than that, he didn't look like he just looked like the deer was tired. When I was just filming him with you, I'm like, man, for this old of a deer, I'm like, I just expected.
If you didn't have years and years of pictures of that deer, you probably wouldn't think he's as old as he really was, would you?
No, I'll show you a few trail camera videos that we have him when we're done here.
Yeah.
Because his body was like, you'd have looked at this deer and like, that's an old deer.
Okay.
But it just doesn't, what he put on the scale didn't match. But like, you look at his body and it's like saggy and like he looks old.
Yeah. Warren didn't believe me, but when he was coming in, I'm about 90% sure that I was watching him limp too for a while, and I don't think he had any injuries this year, did he?
Not that I know.
That we knew of.
He's
old.
A cane.
He's like, I didn't think he was limping. I'm like, dude, he was running off that hill like with his right foot like coming up every single time. But
one thing you said I think was really interesting. You said that you've seen some of them peak at 4.
Yes.
I think if it wasn't in my head so bad, and that's what I want to do, start hunting some more other properties too, because I think it'd be a lot easier for me to shoot 4-year-olds because it'll be harder to identify.
Yeah.
I think that honestly, I don't know that you give up that much. Now I think that from 4 to 6 you can get. I would agree. We have a few that you can get to like 15, 20 inches, but a lot of them sometimes it's not more than like 10 inches. And so, but for me, I'll never be able to do it on places that we're hunting.
A lot of it would depend too on the neighborhood. I mean, if you got an area that you think that for sure the deer's going to survive, then let them go. There's been a few deer that we've passed it for. My dad has one right now that he let him walk like January 2nd or something, and he was a booner 4-year-old deer, but he's pretty confident the deer's going to survive. But then there's other neighborhoods where it's like, you better kill that deer because somebody else is going to kill him. Shooting 4-year-old deer is a big controversy. A lot of guys will tell you let them keep going, and on some farms I would say so, but other times you better kill them because somebody else probably will.
Personally, I won't be able to do it just because of the what if in my head. Yeah. Like now I've been fortunate to kill enough deer that in my head it'll just be stuck that what if he had done another 20 inches, or something like that. But so now I would like to ask you, so one, is your dad running cell cams or is he running regular cameras?
Too.
We both. I think he probably has 30 cell cameras, and I think I have 20 or so. So between the two of us, we got to have almost 50 cell cameras, I would say.
Has that been a game changer?
Gracious.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Well, I can tell you this deer, I would have never killed him without a cell. There's been that flyer buck, never killed him without a cell camera, because you got those pictures and went in immediately. One thing I've noticed in kind of my hunting style in the last few years with cell cameras is I've gotten way more aggressive hunting. A few years ago, I would kind of hang back. It's like, well, I'm going to step back and observe, see what I see. Maybe I'll move in and make a move the next couple days. Now, you get a picture of a deer, go in immediately and kill him, like with this deer. So I had a picture of him. I believe it would have been Saturday nights, like November 6th, like in the middle of the night, and I went in Sunday morning, November 7th, the morning, and killed him. So we're talking about like within 12 hours of getting the picture, and went in and killed the deer. So cell cameras have made me personally hunt way more aggressive.
What are you putting your cameras on to give you this information? Is it scrapes? Is it rubs? Is it
mostly scrapes?
Scrapes.
Mostly scrapes. I mean, it depends on the time of year. This time of year, on putting food out after the season's over, putting corn and bales of alfalfa.
We'll have to make sure you got our scents next year.
Okay.
So you can be really lighting them.
I tell you what,
up.
I don't really mess with a whole lot of scents lately,
but
I'll try them.
You got to try them.
I tell you what, my dad and I laugh about this, but we just pee in our own scrapes, man. Dude,
yeah.
Deer, they can't tell the difference, I don't think. I mean,
well, let us get nerdy with you for a minute.
Okay.
We'll get nerdy because we've been doing all kinds of research on this.
Okay.
So the reason that does work, because you're putting moisture into the scrape and you're reactivating the sense of the deer. of what the deer have already put there.
Oh,
so
okay.
like we'll carry around a jug,
just
like
pour
water in there.
And so
you know, that makes sense. It actually that does make sense.
So it's not actually your piss that they're hitting.
Yeah.
It's that you've reactivated and you've kept that scent damp and moist where they can smell all of the scent of the other deer.
Well, and one thing I've seen myself is making a big scrape. So like taking your boot or a rake or something and just making like a huge area where that's visible from the deer. They'll go and work it without even smelling your scent or another deer scent. Just making it visible, in my opinion, is more important than any kind of scent.
Yeah,
that I've seen, and that's just what I've noticed.
Have you tried any rubbing trees yet?
I haven't. I've seen guys do that. Well, that's pretty cool.
Have to try that too.
We'll have to show you some video because our scents speak for themselves. And because I had warned off all scents till a few years ago. I had a bad experience with elk urine.
Oh boy!
Really?
That don't
bad
sound
experience.
too good.
Yeah, and after I ate it for 4 days, I was done. I'll never touch this stuff again. A guy gave me a dish of it was like a butter dish. And, he said, and it's elk urine, and it is in a paste form. And anyhow, this guy just insisted, take this with you. And I hiked in, put it in several Ziploc bags because I could smell how strong it was. And back then, I used to make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches.
Oh, no.
Permeated my peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. So when I get to, I'm 6 miles or 5.5 miles back, and I'm going to camp for 4 days. I'm not walking out of here. And these things taste like elk urine.
That's disgusting.
No, it was
that's bad.
So I said no more. I'll never touch it again. I don't want it on my fingers. I don't want to have any part of it. And then a few years ago, I heard about glandular scents. I started messing with them a little bit, and I was like, well, number one, this stuff doesn't smell. I mean, you almost can't even, some of it you can't even hardly smell.
Like orbital glands?
Preorbital.
Okay.
Well, preorbital is the first one that I started with, just because I'm like, okay, so I see these deer, they're rubbing their head on there. But then I really started. I had trail cameras that have video, and I started really looking at this. And I'm like, watch this, man. This deer he's not rubbing his antlers on anything. He's rubbing the tree, but he has no sense of putting his antler on there. It's all his forehead. It's all his eye. Yeah. And so we started looking at all this stuff and started realizing these deer are way more communicating through this glandular process. And so hence we came out with some of our own scents last year, came out with some of our own mixtures, and started putting them on rub trees. And
our bug junkie you can smell.
Yeah.
You could use it as a smelling salt if you wanted. Like it's
powerful.
It's powerful.
Well, like the preorbital one though, that's not that gland for them. It doesn't produce a lot of scent. So
I see. Okay.
So it's pretty, but like I said, we could show you some video to show you trees that we put in and have 15 to 20 different bucks hit that tree. Wow. Good bucks come back.
Holy smokes!
Time after time after time, within minutes or hours after we put something on that tree.
Wow. It's really helping us get shots though, because it's taking areas where we don't necessarily have something like that we can squeeze them down to, and it gives them a reason to at least come over there and check it out.
I mean, that one, curiosity.
I think that one is a big visibility one too. Because like he puts a lot of his in like a certain part of the food plot to get him to come over to by where a stand is or something. And where I've put some of mine has been in the trees where there's maybe a little open area, and you put one of these trees that doesn't look like any of the other ones, and it's already cut open some. So some of them I was looking for like 60, 100 yards away. You can see it because we'll start them and stuff. Yeah. And it's like glistening over there. It's like like a little sign for them.
So they just out of curiosity come see what's.
I genuinely think. I mean, the sense is what kind of hooks them, and I definitely think it's also a curiosity thing that when they see something like that, they're like, oh, okay, I'm going to come over there and check it out.
But then dominance takes over.
Yep.
Yeah. Then they got to leave their scent.
Oh yeah, and then if you do, then I'm going to, and if you're going to, then I'm going to.
Yeah. Never-ending process.
Yeah.
I tell you what, I make most of my mock scrapes with a weed eater.
Yeah,
I mean, I want those things to be like at least 3 or 4 feet wide. Like, I mean, like massive.
I use a machete and a little rake.
That works. Weed eater's easier, man.
Yeah, well, I ain't carrying that thing as far as I walk sometimes. So.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
So how many deer of this caliber do you have to hunt in a year? Like,
oh man,
is it 10? Is it?
Well, I would say first off, I mean, the goal going into every season is to get a 200-inch deer. So I would say,
you're out.
I would say usually every year there's a pretty good odds of at least an upper 190s to a 200-inch deer. Usually there's always like that one, like the one I was showing you pictures of. There's like that one or sometimes two that's like that's the deer. That's the one that my whole season's going to go on that deer. But I would say on average every year. Now these are deer that you will get one sighting or one picture. That doesn't mean they were necessarily killable. They were just moving through. I would say at least a 10 to a 15 probably.
Okay.
That are this caliber.
You're still having to be effective. So
they're not behind every tree by any means.
No, we're gonna establish like a Tyler method here.
So
the first thing that because I'm honestly trying to learn from you, because you're beating the hell out of me. So the first thing that you're trying to do is just find deer, locate deer of that caliber.
Hold on, you got to back up because the listener out there are going to say, first thing I got to do is move to Iowa. Because they got to be there somewhere. So you got to be in a place where
you can't expect to hunt a 170-inch deer every year in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, you can apply this to anywhere for whatever your size is.
Yes,
you could apply that to killing a 120-inch deer in Pennsylvania if those are your biggest. It's all relative to where you're at.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So the first thing is you got to go find deer, and it does not require that you go buy a farm or lease a farm or anything like that.
Permission.
You just have to, Yep. Okay, so we have that established. And the next thing that you guys are doing is you're putting out lots of cameras and putting in time to locate deer of that caliber. And then walk me through what's some of the strategies that Tyler does different than what everybody else does. Maybe you don't want to give us your secret sauce.
I don't have too many secrets, but the biggest secret I would say is being mobile. Okay, and of course we talk about it a lot in the hunting industry, but 99% of my hunts are out of a climber.
Really?
Yes, both of these bucks were killed out of a climber actually, and I have a hanging hunt set up too, and I will use that if like I'm hunting a farm that's like a couple fence rows where sometimes you can't get a climber in a tree.
Yeah, I was gonna say, how are you finding trees for climbers?
Well, you kind of got to be a monkey a little bit sometimes, and I'll take the thing. If you get a limb on a tree, I'll climb halfway up it and then take the cable off and then put it above the limb and then climb up a couple more feet just to get a little more.
Disclaimer: TMA does not approve of this message.
He didn't say he didn't have a safety harness hooked on it.
Yeah, so you got to be safe.
Yeah,
at
what
the
do you do?
time.
Magically lasso the top of the tree?
I'm trying to help you out, Tyler.
So what advantage do you think that's so like when it comes to pressure? How do you believe in? So like we have a few different theories on this, and I believe in both. Like one, he will be around his house and stuff all the time and drive around, check cameras and everything, and I think that honestly helps those deer acclimate to him, and so he can put quite a bit more pressure on them. Where I think we have other places that you can't do that.
The element of surprise.
Yes,
like going in and where a deer has never seen you out of a tree stand, has never seen. A lot of guys will go and they hang one stand, and that'll be their stand for the rut. That's where they're going to hunt. And a buck have picked them out of that tree before, and well, maybe that buck doesn't want to come around that tree anymore, or uses a different trail. So I rarely hunt the same tree twice. I mean, even if it's if I'm hunting a trail going to a food plot, I will bounce around. I mean, from 5-10 feet around. If there's one tree that gives you a good lane here, well, you got to hop in and get to the next if you can't see out of that one. Wherever, and that goes back to kind of being really aggressive. A climber lets you be aggressive. So many guys get stuck to where they just want to hunt their one blind or one tree stand. Where in reality, if they were in a climber in that tree on the trail going to the plot, they would have had a shot at the deer. You have to be extremely adaptable. And when you're hunting a lot of different farms, a lot of smaller parcels, it doesn't make sense to hang a tree stand on you'd have to hang 100 different tree stands.
Yeah.
So that's where the climber is nice.
So let's just say, you go into season, you got a deer you're trying to kill. And at what point does Tyler say, okay, I'm going to go in after this deer now? Is there some criteria, like I have to have at least a daylight picture of him or pictures of him near daylight? Like what information do you need before you're comfortable doing that?
I'll still hunt a buck. If I'm not getting daylight pictures of him, I will still hunt him. I'm not saying I'm going to go right in and be extremely aggressive. It's when you get that one daylight picture on a cell camera or when that buck suddenly shows back up is when you have to go after him. I mean, like be as aggressive as you possibly can. And especially that kind of goes back to like hunting urban areas. A lot of these bucks like this one will show up and they'll be in this one woodlot for like 3 days, and then they're gone 2 miles down the street to the next woodlot. So when a deer is there, you have to go in and kill them. So that's where we rely on cell cameras so stinking much, because that one picture. And if you were running a regular camera, well, you go back and check it a week later. Oh, that buck was there a week ago.
Yeah, we believe cell cams, I think 100% changes the game.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Without a doubt.
I would say it is probably, I mean, food plots, all these other things we do, cell cameras are the thing that can make you a way better hunter.
Oh, I think they definitely provide lots of opportunity.
Yeah.
Well, so that's kind of what some of my questions were. I think that it's really interesting to see the different ways that people are successful in killing deer like this. So that was some of my initial questions.
Well, I think that you'd be successful no matter where you live. It might not be a 170-inch deer. Like I said, you could apply this in Pennsylvania, Alabama, wherever it may be.
Yeah.
My hat's off to you to be at your age to have already. Sounds like my hat's off to your dad as well. I've never met the man,
sir.
and it sounds like he's I don't know what the best word is.
Mentor?
Yeah, but I'm trying to think of something for the whitetails. I mean,
my dad has an insane amount of drive for an old guy. My dad's almost 60 years old, and he gets so excited. Come on now, he gets so excited though. He fires me up sometimes. It's like, man, okay, settle down. But it's that drive and that fire that I got for my dad to just to keep going after it, man. Don't give up.
Right.
I had another question now that I thought about it.
Okay.
Have you bumped into some of these deer, being aggressive? And if you did bump them, did they come back? Were they gone? Did they ghost you?
That deer I was showing you pictures of, the one the big typical deer, I had, I think, at least 6 different encounters with that deer, and I think 4 of those were within 50 yards. And I could not kill him. And he busted me every single time.
But he'd come back.
But he would come back. And for some reason, that deer likes, and I didn't have any history with him.
Was he smelling you or seeing you?
Both, actually.
Both. Really?
Both. I didn't have any history with that deer the year before. I didn't really know what he was going to do. I kind of expected, in the area that he was living in, it's not an area where a deer would spend the whole year. They're going to summer here in some big crop fields, and then as soon as the crops are gone, they're going to be 3 miles away. So I went into the season to be really aggressive to try to kill him off the bat because I thought he was going to hightail it out of there. So, the first encounter, I saw him a long ways off. The second encounter, what he was doing is walking. There was a kind of a grass road between a cornfield and a bean field. And this was around the 1st of October. And he would walk this trail. Well, there's no trees there at all. It's just a flat, wide open field. So I was seeing him from a long ways, but there was no trees at all to get on him. So one day I just decided I'm going to set in the cornfield, and he's going to come up and walk this trail, and I'm going to shoot him. So I sat in the corn, sat on a chair just like this, and he came out, and I kind of snapped off some corn stalks so I could get a shot I did 2 different lanes, one going this way and one this way. And he came out and he saw me, and I drew back my bow, and I'm standing full draw, and he's staring. All I can see is his rack and is about this much of his neck, and he's just standing there staring at me at like 8 yards. And he's just, I mean, you saw the deer, a 200-inch deer staring at you at 8 yards. And looking back on it, I should have just shot him right in the throat. Should have just throat punched him.
You made the right decision.
I didn't. And he picked me. He saw me, and before I could shoot him, he turned around and hightailed. He blew his head off. That deer went back there like 50 yards away and blew probably 20, 30 times. I'm just sitting there listening to it, just thinking, wow, what am I doing? And the next night, right after that, I got in a tree kind of 100 yards down. There was eventually, so where I shot him was kind of in the middle of the fields, and there was a fence row about 100 yards away. So I got in that fence row the next night. He came out on the same exact trail. After the night before, he blew at me 30 times because he saw me in the corn. He came out on the same trail, and I missed him at 34 yards. I misjudged the distance. So 2 nights in a row, the deer did nearly the same exact thing.
Did he check the spot where you had been?
No, he didn't get that far. I was a little closer to him this time, so I kind of figured I'd get him before he came out. What gave you the confidence
to go back? Did you just figure that it was at least worth a shot?
I kind of thinking the fact that he was going to leave, And the fact that he was the area that this deer was living in is just it's just a fence row. Literally, it was just a fence row. So I thought, well, at least going back, I'm gonna maybe see him somewhere else or see what he's doing. I just thought I had in my mind this deer's gonna leave. I have a few days to kill him before he's off his summer pattern and going to where he's gonna spend the rut. So I missed him, then I didn't see him for a while, and then they cut the crops. So this was getting to like,
is it corn?
Yes, they cut the cornfield. The deer was living in the cornfield, honestly. Yep. So they cut the corn, and for some reason he just stayed there. And I had another encounter with him, and he came from these people's backyards. I guess he was laying in their backyard or something, and total opposite direction I thought he was going to come from. I turned around, I'm sitting in my climber, I turned around, he's 30 yards away looking at me directly downwind. I stand up, and he smells me and takes off out across the field. Blew like crazy, too. Then I had another encounter, and I say, and this is all like, these 4 or 5 times that I had him and he blew at me was all in the same corner of this cornfield, like within 100 yards of each spot. And the last time that I saw him, he was actually coming for me directly. He was about 50 yards away, and he was coming straight at me. And this is going to sound crazy, but a huge flock of geese flew over and landed in the field beside him, between me and him, and spooked him, and he turned around and started walking the other way he came from. And that was the last time I saw him.
What are the odds of that?
No, that period that was like a 1 week or what?
That was from September 18th to that was October 30th.
Okay,
the last time I saw him.
This was a little bit of a
around Halloween. So this went on for over a month.
Yeah,
and I got to tell you, I hunted this deer every single day because the way it's set up. The way it was just an open field, I could sit there almost every single day and get in and get out without, the goal was without spooking him. I ended up spooking him when I was hunting him, but it was just the type of spot. And you can't do that. If you're hunting a big woods, you can't go back and walk in the woods every single day for a month straight. But the way the spot's set up.
Was that the year you ended up killing him? Or was it a year before you killed him?
No, that was the buck. That's the buck that went MIA. That's disappearing. That's the one I showed you pictures of.
Okay. I was thinking it was the really heavy one you killed.
Oh no, that's a different one. Yeah.
Yeah, that's rough.
Yeah, so we'll see if he comes back, but
you have to wipe your tears with 3 other 170s.
Yeah, no kidding. Real tough.
Yep.
I missed a buck in January too. Actually, the second to the last day of the end of the season with a bow. 70 yards. I don't know why I flung an arrow there, but
yeah,
that's a poke.
How far were these ones?
That's crazy. This deer was 8 yards. That deer was 9 yards, and that one was 30.
Yeah.
These two were literally directly at almost my base of the tree, like shooting right under.
Wow. Our average is like 20 on deer.
Yeah.
Well, mine was 12.
Magnum was 15.
That's what you like, though.
Yeah, no, I'm saying my average had been on whitetail deer was 12 yards. I don't know if I haven't done it in a long time. See what it's still, but it's still. I guarantee it's under 20.
I've flung some arrows. It seems like over 30 yards. It is so hard to kill a deer.
Absolutely.
So many things can go wrong.
Yeah, absolutely.
For sure. All right, guys. Well, anything else, Easton?
I don't think so.
Tyler, thank you for coming, man. We sure appreciate it. It was fun to sit and visit with you and listen to your stories, but
yes, sir.
Maybe I don't want to I'm not cutting you down, but it was maybe even funner to sit here and take a look at these the whole time.
More fun, sir. Dad.
Funner is a word if I want to use it.
No, it's not.
It is.
Okay.
All right.
We'll go with it.
So thank you guys again. This is the Raised Hunting Podcast. Again, please, if you guys like what you're listening to, send us a review. Share this with your friends, and make sure you send in your topics. Again, those of you that have sent in topics, some of them we haven't gotten to yet. It's because they're going on a list because we're trying to do stuff as timely as we can. So, but with that, man, Tyler, again, thank you for being here.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
This is Raised Hunting signing off. Appreciate you guys.